Welcome to the BAM podcast. That's right, BAM, business and money instead of bitching and moaning. This is the 2.0 version of the top 3 podcast, True Underdog. This will give you an inside look at building a business, overcoming business and personal issues, and most of all, not bitching and buying into this bitch-ass cancel culture lifestyle. I'm tired of it. I'm sure you're tired of it. Take it from me, who I built 3 companies and have done over $1 billion in sales in my time. You're going to hear from cool-ass guests as well on my show. You have 0 time to bitch, time to make your move. Let's fucking go. Bam! Bam! Jayson Waller here with the BAM podcast. That's Business and Money Podcast. Top 5 entrepreneur podcast coming straight out of the gate, going for that #1 spot. And I am super excited about my guest today. He's from the West Coast, which I love. That's where I grew up in Arizona. He grew up in Cali. It's a little nicer. But this guy's an entrepreneur, used to be a bomb-ass skateboarder. I think maybe he still skateboards. And he's going to talk to us, especially in what we think we're going into a recession, of how to try to be recession-proof, how to invest into real estate and do big things. My boy, Mikey Taylor, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Hopefully this episode is the one that fuels the #1 spot, huh?
That's it, man. That would be great, right? Because like Ed Milet's my friend and Andy Frisella's my friend. And those 2 were sitting at 1 and 2 last I looked, and I was 4. So I said, how do I climb up and catch those guys? So hopefully this pushes us up there, and then I can have a chat with them to say, see, I told you. But
yeah, those are big shoes to fill, but we're going to try. We're going to try.
I'm just honored that I'm in the conversation with them. Like, I'm excited about that. And this is the second podcast I've done, Mike. I had one called True Underdog that did hit top 3, never went higher than that. This one's a brand new one that I started over in December. And it's going really well. I got some cool guests coming on, and I'm excited to talk to you because, I was watching some of your stuff on Instagram, and, it's cool that you skateboard. You got that cool Cali look that everyone can resonate with. Like, look, that's what California, if you want to know what the fuck California looks like, that's it right there. That's what California looks like. But that's a good thing. That's a compliment. That's what, that part of California looks like. The rest of fucking California is a little different. I've been out there enough to say that. But to get into real estate and do what you do, let's talk about first, what did you used to do before? What convinced you and pushed you to get into real estate?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So my first career was a skateboarder. I was a professional skateboarder, which is like a dream come true for a kid, except it's a career that has no longevity to it. And part of this energy around skateboarding was this fear of what happens after our careers. And it was kind of that fear that forced me to be in a position of trying to figure out what was next. Mm-hmm. And I got introduced to some people who were investing in storage units. I knew nothing about it. I was just so desperate to figure something out that it sounded good. I didn't even understand how to do due diligence. I was going to invest passively, and I went for it. I didn't invest a ton of money. It was enough that I was able to lose. But as I started getting these distributions or these dividends, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like the light bulb kind of went off for me. And I went, this is the path. This is how I figure out life after skateboarding, is if I just have this money coming in that I'm essentially not doing anything for. And that excitement drove me to learn more and more about it. And then I would say faith or comfort in the asset really started to increase as I started having it pay off longer and longer, and as I started educating myself around it.
You said something that I think the fans, the listeners, and the viewers will pick up on is the fear, right? Yeah. I'm a big believer, and you mentioned it in some of your Instagram stuff, but fear makes you do things, and you can either be fearful and run away from a storm. I talked about on a TED Talk that I did, the difference between a cow and a buffalo. Do you know the difference?
No, I don't.
You're going to love this. So when a storm is coming, a cow actually runs away from the storm. And what happens is that storm chases them and they're in the storm longer. They can't get out of it. It's just chasing them. It's just over them. But what a buffalo does is it runs through the damn storm. So it gets through it earlier. And what you talked about a few seconds ago, saying, hey, that fear of like, all right, screw it, I'm just going to do it, and scared money don't make money, and taking that chance, that's being a buffalo saying, I'm a little nervous, but I can either run because I'm scared of what my next career is, or I can jump right in, all in, and fucking make a change. And that's kind of what you did.
Oh, I love that. That's a phenomenal analogy.
Isn't that
Yeah,
great?
that's it. Yep, that's it.
Be a buffalo, like not a
That's
cow, be a buffalo. Like, and I love my boy Sean Whalen with, be a lion, not a sheep. It's similar, but it's just truth of you see these animals go the opposite way in a storm. And it's amazing because that's how our lives are. We all live with some kind of fear. Nobody can say I'm fearless. Everyone has fear, but what do you do with it? You channeled it to take risks. And if you don't risk it, you don't get a biscuit.
right. What's interesting about that, though, when you think of it, it's like the buffalo. This is like innate in it to run towards it. Like where us, I think we're more like the cow in the sense of if we're not thinking and our body's just doing, we're typically running from.
Yes.
Right. It's
Yes.
like has to be like a mental kind of decision to go, I'm going to force myself through this. And it ends up being better, but it's not natural for us. I don't think.
It's not. It's hard because, it's like I went, I'm not a roller coaster guy. I used to be, love roller coasters, but we just went to Disney for the freaking 28th time because I've got 4 kids and grandkids and the whole show. And my son's like, we're going to ride this roller coaster. I'm like, shit, I hate roller coasters now. I'm old as shit. And I'm scared as hell riding it. And he's scared as hell riding it. And I got to act like I'm not scared. And I just got to turn it on mentally. And that's it's a different analogy. What I'm trying to say is that fear, whether it be physical fear like that of like, what the hell's going to happen? I can't control it. Or I can't control what happens with my money. I can't control what happens with my investment. I can't control what happens with this opportunity.
Right. That's right. Yeah, spot on.
So, you start getting into that. I saw the storage unit stuff. I always had this dream. I don't do a lot of investments in real estate. I'm still learning. Like I was picking up on some of your stuff and I was like, dude, I got to get into real estate more. I had one real estate building and then I had a couple houses. But one of the things I've always envisioned and dreamed of doing is an idea I got from a guy who used to own a solar company. And he goes, dude, why don't you buy storage units and put solar on the wasteful roof there and just sell the power back to the grid or have climate control included with that and not have to pay nothing because it's wasteful roof space. And I've always thought, dude, that's great. Like you're getting the storage money in, you're getting the rental on the property in, and then you turn around, you're making the money in on the thing. And so I saw your storage. Yours was really a high building that I saw was a little different than the normal storage units, I believe. But have you looked at taking some of your investments and really diversifying those to add more value to them?
The answer is yes. The solar one, if we're talking specifically about solar, that's something that like I think at first glance we all go, yeah, that's a no brainer, right? Of course we'll do that. The challenge that we've had sometimes with the solar is as good as it sounds, a lot of times the numbers just don't pencil.
Yeah.
And so, but to add on to that, what we do kind of our philosophy is how do we take a dead asset that we can buy at a discount and repurpose it or redevelop it into something in need. So that's kind of our big value add prop is going through that. I think probably the solar, if you can get it to work, do it. It's
and it
phenomenal.
Depends on your utility company, depends on the cost of power. I know in
the
California,
state
they're
you're
not
in.
very friendly on commercial power and time of use. So I get it. Like it's hard, but yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And, but I think it's important when people are taking chances that, sometimes you got to pivot during that chance. It's not just all glory and sunshine, right?
Right. Most of the times it's not, right? Most of the times it's actually brutal and there's a lot of things happening that you're having to work through. And then, the final package works out, but how the sausage is made it's not what everybody thinks.
So being an entrepreneur now, how long have you been doing this?
I started my first business in 2010, 11.
Okay.
And so a little bit over a decade.
Yeah. It's exciting, right? You watch these people around you grow with you.
Yeah.
Take them along for the ride. I watched your clip, Life of an Entrepreneur. I watched that on Instagram literally 10 minutes before we got on. I was like, let me do some good research on this guy because we got a team. And I was like, dude, this is perfect. And, you have your boy in there and you're like, hey, we're going to do this. And you have your other boy in there. Hey, we're eating lunch. And then you show your other dude working. Hey, as long as he's doing the underwriting. Like, I really dug that. I think it's important that people see the real you and that you are you and you're not just, people got to be able to be relatable to you. That too many times we see, and I love Grant Cardone. I've had him on the show, but he isn't relatable to the normal person, right? He doesn't show relatable. He's got private jets, right? He's got all these things that a lot of normal people don't have. And I'm not saying you don't have those. My point is you're not flamboyantly showing those in some of these videos. You're showing, hey, look, I'm a normal person. We're going to Nordstrom. We're doing this. We're doing that. And what it does, but it's a big deal because then people go, well, shit, if this guy can do it, surely I can do it. And that's not a knock on you. It inspires and motivates people.
I'm thankful that you took it that way because that's the intention behind it. I've always wanted to be the example of, or the idea of if I could do it, then anyone can. Yeah. Because, especially right now, what we're up against primarily, especially with the new generation, is this belief that nothing's possible, right? It's heartbreaking that they're not even taking the step because they're accepting defeat before they even attempt it. And so that's really kind of the premise behind why I'm at least using social the way I am. I want people to just know it's possible,
Yeah. And look, and when you have, when you're building a brand and you have followers, you have some that want to see the sexy toys, and you just, as long as you do it tastefully, which, I've been mocked and said, dude, you're not very tasteful in that. I'm like, shit, I guess I messed up on that. But you learn and live, and you're like, well, I didn't mean it to be that way. Cause I look at the Grant Cardone, as much as I love like what he's about and how he's built this business and great, I still think he's too much on that side, where you look at some of the other guys and like Gary V, and he's not as flamboyant. I think there's a middle. I think some people want to see your success. They want to know it's real. You're not just talking about it. But some people, it bothers them like, oh, he's bragging. I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you had this. Haters are very insecure. Now, I have arguments all the time on my show because there's some people like, oh, haters don't fuel me. I just ignore them. They fuel the shit out of me. Like, I don't waste my time. If I'm driving on the interstate, I don't go, I'm going to get off the exit and go down this road and deal with this hater. I might get off the rest area real quick and go and snatch them out and go back and just show them on the way. I'm not going to waste any of my energy, but it's like when people say you can't, or you won't, or you fail, or you're not good enough, or you're this, that just inspires me to prove them wrong. I'm not doing it for that reason, but it's just a perk for me. It just adds fuel to the fire. How do you come across haters, and what does it do for you?
It's changed over the years, to tell you the truth. In the beginning, like when I became a pro skateboarder, that was probably the first time I had to really work through it. Yeah. It wasn't easy for me. Like I didn't have the fuel aspect of like, I'm going to prove these people wrong. What it started doing to me is I started thinking about the things they were saying, and it was changing the way I skated. Yeah. And I was really got stuck in this mentality of like, I don't want people to talk crap on me. Yeah. And what happened, or the correlation behind it, was my career started falling and falling and falling before I got to the point where I was completely irrelevant. And that was kind of the scariest moment for me, where I was like, holy shit, if I follow them, I die. Yeah.
And then I kind of do. That's what they want you to do.
That's correct. So that was like the beginning for me to go, okay, you know what? If like the idea of you need haters, you actually do. Because if no one's hating on you, that means you're making zero splash. That means you're not being impactful in the slightest way. That's right. So that was kind of the first one. As I started getting outside of skateboarding, it kind of this new hater kind of came. Yeah. And it was around this idea that skaters can't do this, right? Like my path when I was skateboarding, my first business was actually in the craft beer industry. And I started a brewery with two of my friends, and it was kind of California focused, right? It was skate, surf, snow, culture. And we had never accomplished anything before. So there was no one really hating. Then we sold the business. After we sold the business is when I started the private equity firm. And that's when a new type came out. That's when the type came out that was saying, you're not allowed to talk about money. You're not allowed to invest. You're only a skateboarder. You're not a financial advisor. And that was the one where that started motivating me. Then I was like, you know what? Here we go. I can use this, right? Then fast forward to last year, I ran for city council in Thousand Oaks. That was a new type of beast. That was a hater that I have never experienced before.
Was that worse than the others?
It was the worst thing I've ever. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced, but it also was the best thing at the same time, if that makes sense, right? Like, look, I'm a skateboarder. I'm doing my thing, and people will tell me like, you suck at skateboarding. Okay, they're criticizing the way I do something, right? I start the private equity firm, and now they're arguing about the things I'm saying. We can contend on that, right? You run for politics, man, they come straight at your character, and it doesn't matter if you ever said anything that will put them onto that attack, they're attacking you.
Right.
So that was something that I had to get used to. But where I finished with it, and this is kind of, where I land today, people treat you based on how they feel about themselves.
That's true.
And the more vicious they are to you, really, the more they're hurting inside. And when you can start looking at them through that lens, you start seeing people more as an opportunity and not as much as the enemy.
Yeah.
And then it puts you in a position of actually being able to communicate a way that is actually impactful, as opposed to, you're going to punch me, I'm going to punch you back.
Yeah.
And I think with that was probably the best thing I've ever learned through this campaign. And I'm hoping to kind of take that now, hopefully for the rest of my life.
And you won the campaign, right?
And I won the campaign. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
Congrats
Yep.
on that.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's important that you're right. And the bigger you get, and whether you're in politics or you're in business, the harder they're going to come after you. I mean, it's just how it is. And,
right.
I always say to, I have 3 older daughters, and they get a lot of heat online, and then they get depressed when they look at all these like social media can be depressing. It's all on the lens you look at it. And, I get on them and I go, look, you got to quit worrying about what people say. Just use it as motivation. Like, okay, I'm not going to give them an ounce of my energy because they're winning. But if they're going to watch me win, then I'm winning because I'm putting on a show for them. I'm just going to continue to do me and focus on me while they're focusing on me. And there's a lot of people that just focus on you because you're right. They're miserable. And the more angry they are and the harder they come for you, the more demons they're fighting. The more problems they're having, and your success is their failure, which is wrong. It's wrong. Right. And everyone has the opportunity to be successful, no matter age, race, any of that. Everyone in this country can get out there and find a way to be successful somehow, some way. I believe that. I believe that everyone has their own struggles. Everyone has their own adversity they got to overcome. I'm not saying it's a perfect world out there by no means, but everyone has an opportunity to try to make a change. And I always say, if you want change, you have to go get it. No one's going to give it to you.
Right.
You in politics now, are you seeing a lot more of that?
Man, yes, but I come from skateboarding, man. Like skateboarding it's a fascinating thing where you see these kids learn how to do things and the rest of the world looks at it as almost magic. Like, how were you able to make that happen, right? So they unlock something in one regard, but skaters have such a hard time taking that and applying it to anything else. That's kind of our dilemma. And so I kind of already fight with that, like, I'm stuck here and I can't do this, and the industry wasn't fair to me and my sponsors didn't pay me. And I think I've kind of grew up with seeing that. But I think you see it probably the most with just the youth, man. It's like right now, I think it's eyes on Gen Z, and it's their outlook, whether it pertains to skateboarding, with starting a business, with finding a career. It's this outlook of I can't. They didn't grow up being told like we were, if you just go do it, it's gonna happen. Like anything that you think is possible is possible. They didn't have that. They've kind of been taught that everything is stacked against them. And so you're seeing that impact happen at scale.
I think it's crazy. So I remember stories. My dad grew up in Michigan, and he would tell me stories like, listen, Jayson, I used to walk 2 miles uphill in the snow, 17 degrees below zero, all of these things. Fast forward 30 something years, I'm up in Michigan, like, Dad, that's like 3 blocks. It's never minus 17, right? The story gets bigger as you go. But the point is how hard they had it. We had it so much harder than you guys. They did in a different aspect. It's true. And then we had it harder than the new generation in a different aspect, which really hardens us, which makes us tougher, which makes us, and we're going to get to in a minute, realize that we have to do things and be forced to do things than not. And I remember, I'm 43 years old, and I remember the perception to people my age and people that were going to school at my time was like, look, you're a winner if you go to college, but if you don't go to college, you're a loser. And to me, that's the furthest from the truth. I didn't, I finished high school at a vocational school. I did 0 college, had a kid when I was 18. Like all of these things that were against me, I didn't use them as an excuse. I was like, look, I got to go out and hustle and be the best at whatever I can be. And I was a great salesperson. I was in, phone sales at the time and whatever. So long story short, I feel like that perception, I felt, and I was insecure for several years in business because I didn't have that college education. So I would hire people who were smarter than me, and I would be insecure managing them. I would be insecure being a great leader for them because I felt like, dude, like this guy went to school, like he's better than me. And really they're working for me. They believe in me. And it took me time to get the skill set, the courage, the confidence to realize none of that matters. What matters is what I'm doing now. It doesn't matter what school I went to, what city I grew up. None of that matters. I mean, unless you're a doctor or you're a dentist or a lawyer, that's my opinion. It doesn't matter. In today's world, we're not telling them you have to go to college to be, it's different to be a winner. We're telling them you don't have to do anything. And that's what's scary.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost don't even want to say anything on that. You're correct.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I've got a son who he's the most motivated person I've ever seen. Like he thought he was, a little overweight. He's 12. I'm like, dude, shut up. Really? He went and lost 20 pounds on his own. Like he was body judging me if I ever ate sugar. Here I am sneaking slushies behind the door. Right. Like, oh God, like, don't look at me. Like he was that guy. Right. And, but he's inspired, motivated. He listens to me, but you know what? He doesn't like being told he can't do something. Like, He doesn't like being told put down, but he's rare. I got 3 daughters and I love them to death, but they're more of the, well, what do I do now? Right. They're not as hungry. And that's okay. Cause every kid and every human being has their attributes. I believe God gives everyone equal attributes. They're just in different spots of what your skill sets are and what your skill sets aren't. And what I've come to realize is you have to be able to motivate and inspire people different ways because everybody needs something different to succeed. Some people need love. Some people need kindness. Some people need encouragement. Some people need a kick in the ass. Some people need to be pulled by their ear. Like it is really case by case by case. You agree?
Right. 100%. I mean, I think any father does, right? Any father that has multiple kids will tell you they're not the same. Yeah, you have. I mean, I have 4 kids, but my older two, 10 and 8. So you're starting to see kind of, how you communicate to them and how they're moved by it, and vice versa. My other 2 are younger; we're not there yet. But what my oldest daughter needs to hear to get her fired up is 180-degree difference than my next. Yeah. And I would say that's the same for our team. It's like, we have people on our team that it's very easy to get them fired up to go kill in context of, going out and making business happen. And then we have others that, they need more encouragement. They need more, like, you're doing a good job. It's words of affirmation, right? But you know what I'll say? What I think what I see across the whole board is the majority of people want to feel valued. I think that is something in our business. Everyone wants to feel valued. Everyone wants to feel like what they do is important. And if they go away, it will hurt the team. And then you have your ways in how you communicate to get kind of the greatest result out of everybody's talent. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still learning more every day, even though I've been an entrepreneur since 2004, and 3 companies. I'm learning every day, and as people evolve and different team members are different than older, team members that I've had. And you've got to, you as an individual and a leader have to be willing to change with the times, change with what's in the room. You got to be able to adapt to get the most out of them. You mentioned the 4 kids. It's funny. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 24. My second oldest is 19. Then my third daughter is 15. And then my son is 12. And the joke is, because we're at Disney, is the first 2 go, and I'm married to the same woman since high school. Like, we've been together since high school. We're from the first marriage. You 2 are from the second marriage. Mom and dad are completely different with you 2 than they were with us. And that's true. Right. And that's because you evolve as a parent, right? You start out making all the mistakes. And I always apologize to my 24-year-old, like, look, you were the guinea pig. We didn't know what we were doing. We were super strict. We locked you up. We did all the wrong things. Then my 19-year-old gets a little bit more freedom. She's going to Bama and she's in a sorority. And I'm like, I hate this, but she has more of a pass than the 24-year-old. 16-year-old kind of does, she getting ready to be 16, does what she wants. And then my son, you know, you as you have more kids, the shits that you give that you're stressed out about, they go away. You're not so overprotective. Right. You're like, okay, it's the fourth one. They can fall off the bed. They're going to be fine. I was freaking out on the first one. In business, it's the same way. The more success that you continue to build on, the easier these problems become and less stressful they become. They just slide off you, right? They just roll off you because you have so many little wins that you've been hitting and you've overcome so many things as you're building and getting that experience, hardening yourself. It becomes easier every single day to deal with issues. Are you seeing that for yourself as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's, at least for me, it feels like two things. Like, yeah, you become smarter, you gain wisdom as you get older, right? The other thing, you start to build confidence in your ability to solve, right? Where I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially when I first jumped into this thing, you have this idea that, like, you know, a successful business is one that doesn't have a lot of problems, right? And it's very similar to marriage, actually. We can create a very similar comparison. But when you get into starting a business, it's a majority of problems. Most of the time, 99% of the time, it feels like you're failing, like you're about to go out of business, like all of the signs around you are saying, do not do this. It's brutal. It's lonely. It's exhausting. It's scary. It's a lot of, for a lot of people, it's not good, right? But as you start doing it more and more, you start to, I think, build comfort in what entrepreneurship actually is. And then as you start getting through these problems, you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then you focus on that versus the, oh my gosh, it's all going to go away, right? I would say for marriage, if we're going to kind of bring it into marriage, I think there's a lot of avenues in life where this is at play. There was a year for my wife and I that was our hard year. 2017 was our, this is not working year, right? We were in a winter. It was absolutely brutal. And that was kind of the moment where we both went, okay, it's either going to die here or we're actually going to work at building our relationship up. And we went through maybe a year of, we went to counseling. We started going to kind of, you know, trips together. We started having this weekly date. We started building our relationship back, right? That following year, our relationship was better than it was the previous 6, right? So you start focusing on what the result of trial is going to be. And if you're willing to go through that fire, what's on the other end is actually better. It's a refining kind of moment. Same thing applies in business. If you're willing to get through the challenges, you know what the result is you becoming a better leader, a better business person. And typically you're making more money. The return is better by doing so. So you just start to find comfort in working through the challenge.
Amen. Well said. I can't top that. That was great. Like that puts it in perspective. And I think all good marriages have to do that to become better. They have to go through things. Some of the listeners out there that want to invest, that want to get into commercial real estate or any kind of real estate, what's some advice and tips you can give them? Like, what should they be paying attention to? How should they save their money? What should they do on a 30,000, view?
Okay. So there's going to be, I'm going to take this in two different directions. You have to decide if you want to be a passive investor or an active investor. That's first.
Explain the difference, because some listeners you're going to have to build from the basement up because they're not even on the main floor yet.
Okay. So a passive investor means that you are investing in someone else's, let's say, company. They are finding the, let's say, apartment. They're managing the process. They're managing the construction. They have a property manager that they're managing. They're managing the financials. They are actively running the business. You are just giving them money to be able to do so. And by giving them money, you're going to take an equity position in the asset and you're going to get paid because of it. So that is a way where money is being made for you. You're not doing anything. Ultimately, it's truly passive. Active means basically the people that you invested in. You're going to go find let's say, apartment. You're going to negotiate it to get into a contract. You're going to get the financing. It is your job. You got to figure out what you want. There's no right or wrong. If you're looking at what results in the highest return, if you're doing the work and you're doing it as good as the other people doing it, the return's always going to be greater if you're active because you don't have to pay anybody to do the job. What you kind of need to think through is that what I want to do? And am I going to be able to do it as good as the other person? Right? Like a lot of investors that we speak to are trying to figure this out. What we say is, if you want to make this a career, then go do it. It doesn't matter if the asset that you're going to find is going to be better than ours, because even if you fail, it's going to be a learning moment for you to go to the next and the next. And this is going to be your pathway to what you want to ultimately do. If not, you're just wanting to do this because of high return, you have to compare your ability to find an asset versus the professional. And if you're going to put all your time and energy into it and make less than the person who's sitting back doing his thing, just getting paid passively, that's not a good investment for you. So you've got to figure that out. Now, depending on where you land on that, if you're passive, right, your goal setting is going to look more like, how much money do I need to be able to invest in some of these offerings, right? The challenge that everyone has is most private offerings you have to be an accredited investor for. Not all, but most. An accredited investor means that you make, as an individual, $200,000 a year, and you've made it for 2 years. If you're married or if you're married, you have to make $300,000, or you have to have a net worth of $1 million, excluding your primary home, right? So there's a big threshold. If you're not there yet, your whole focus needs to be, how do I become accredited? How do I make more money? How do I get to that point? Once you get there, then the next goal becomes, how much money do I need? And what do I need to put in place for me to save to be able to invest? If you're going to do it active, it starts with education, right? You have to learn about the asset. What I would say is, investing in real estate, especially commercially, it's a team sport. It's not an individual thing. So know your skill and know how that skill applies to the total pie. And then you got to go find the partners. If you're not an analytical person, you have to find somebody who's going to underwrite your deals, who's going to manage the numbers. If you're a people person, okay, put you front facing. You're going to be dealing with the brokers. You're going to be dealing with the lenders. You're going to be dealing with, if you need to, raising capital. Just know where you stand in the company, and then go find the people to do it with.
Good advice, dude. And I even learned a lot right there, sitting there hearing you out about, being an accredited investor. I didn't know any of that. I've got some investments with different portfolios, and I didn't know that that's what they look for. I just know that they dock my account every quarter for a calling that I keep giving them lots of money for, and right. Waiting for some returns, but I know it's coming. Right. But that's super exciting stuff. As we wrap up here, Mikey, what is a message you'd like to share out there that's important, and where can the folks find you?
Okay, if you want to find me, you can just search my name on any of the platforms. Mikey Taylor. I think I'm verified in all of them. So I should be at the top. A message. I'm hot on this youth thing right now. I don't want to make this too long of a story, but I started using TikTok a couple years ago, right? TikTok put me into a new category as far as resonating with a younger audience. And so I'm starting to hear more and more from them. And so I've just been thinking about the struggle that a lot of them are facing. And if you ask right now an 18-year-old if they can become wealthy, the majority of them are going to tell you no. You have to be born into it to become wealthy. I'm concerned about this generation because I see so much potential in what they have in front of them, especially with the tools available, with the information available. They're, in my perspective, going to have the greatest opportunity to impact a generation like we have ever seen. Except what's stopping them is the belief system. It's like, you're not going to do anything if you don't think it's possible. So I think my message is going to be for them. This is going to be kind of for the Gen Z. And if you're not in Gen Z, I need you to know this, because for our generation, millennial or above, this is the message that we need to be communicating to the youth, that it 1000% is possible. And what you need to work through is your perception is ultimately your reality, right? Why is Elon able to do all the things he can do?
He believes in it.
Because he thinks it's possible. He thinks it's possible, right? That is what's at play for all of us. So for this new generation, if you have to lie to yourself and tell you it's possible, and even though you feel like you're selling yourself a lie and you don't think it can happen, that's going to end up wearing off on you. And before you know it, you're going to think it's possible. And 5 years from now, you're going to look back and go, holy crap, me lying to myself actually allowed this life to happen. Do whatever it takes to convince yourself that it's possible, because it actually is. And then just apply. Believe and apply.
Damn, that was great. Hey, Mikey, I appreciate you coming on, brother. I hope you enjoy the wonderful weather in Cali. We're trying to stay warm here in the Carolinas. Thank you so much. Make sure you follow my dude here, Mikey Taylor. You can find him on all the platforms. We'll share it in there. Thank you for subscribing. That's a wrap on the BAM podcast. Bam!